Hello and welcome to this recap from our third ACP 620 study session. Here we covered how to categorize work and workflows and notifications. There is a ton of work that happens in Jira. Over time, you're going to get hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of work items. So keeping track of which ones are which and where they are is important. There are some features, for example, spaces and work types that help us categorize them, but there are three specific ones that we as admins need to know about that allow us to further categorize and organize our work. Those are labels, components, and versions. Here, we're going to dig into each of those, and then we'll talk a bit about workflows and notifications. Here we are in our Jira Cloud Premium instance, and first we'll talk about labels. These appear as a field on a work item. Now, the important thing to know about labels is if you can edit work items, you can create and use labels. This is good because it means you can go in and find the labels you need. However, it can also be very, very bad. Here, I can see people have misspelled VIP, and it's lowercase. So people will start to accidentally make new ones. Labels are also visible across every space, so these labels now exist for every other space in Jira. This can be good because I can share review across multiple spaces, and it can be very, very bad because now I have PVI, VPI, and VIP, one of which is capitalized, that people may accidentally use. There is also no built-in way to manage these other than searching for work items with particular labels and then bulk editing. So these are fairly useful. However, at scale, as you get more and more of them, it can be frustrating. Now, you can also have multiple labels on a work item. The next feature we have that looks similar is a component. Similar to labels, you can have multiple components. However, not everyone can make them. Only space admins can create new components, so we have more control. Components are also restricted just to the project that they were created in. Now, as a space admin, I can open up my space settings and look for the components menu. Keep in mind, there are both Compass and Jira components, so you might have to come up here and turn off Compass components to see them, but I can see the components I have, I can add new ones, and I can do some additional things. For example, a component lead. This would be who is responsible for work items with this component, and I can even automatically assign them by default. As a work item is created with this component, always assign it to Rob or assign it to the space owner. This gives me some more control over incoming work and importantly allows me to tailor the components to the space I'm working in. This allows every space to have its own list of components that can be used. The third thing we spoke about were versions. Versions, also called releases, appear in version fields. By default, there's a fix and effects version. The effects version is typically where you have found a bug. Version 1 has this bug. The fix version would be where that bug is resolved. Version 2. Pick some dates. Now, these dates would indicate which work is included. This is not automatic though, it's just used for planning, and then I can open the release. Unlike components and labels, there's a lot of information I can add to releases. Think of this more like a clearinghouse of all the work we do in a quarter or in a half of a year. I can include text to help describe it. I can include related work, for example, text documents. I can include designs that my team has done. I can include work items. And I can also have approvers that I have to approve the release before it's ready to go. And finally, I can release it or archive it. So releases give us a lot of functionality to manage our work. However, they do require setup and only space admins can manage them. So those are our labels, components, and releases. These three features allow us to better organize our work. Next, we spoke about workflows. Workflows represent a series of stages or statuses work moves through. We can always find the workflow that our work items are using by clicking on the status selector in the top right, and I can see which statuses I could move to. Next, I can click on View Workflow to see the workflow that this particular work item uses. In this case, every status can move to every other status. This is called the global transition and means that any status can move to backlog and any status can move to in progress. Depending on your setup, this might look like this or it might look different. For example, this workflow has many global statuses. However, this one is not requesting a second review or returning draft. The lines between statuses represent a transition. The transition may optionally solicit additional information requiring a comment or some other field to help guide the process. Workflows in a space should always match how your team is expected to work. You should not be forcing the team to follow a workflow. They should all understand how work moves from it's brand new work to we have all agreed it's been completed. Space admins usually cannot directly edit these. You can in team managed spaces, and if you have the enhanced admin permission and the workflow you're using is not shared by any other space, you should be able to edit it. Last, we spoke about notifications. Space admins can access notifications by opening up Space Settings and looking for the Notifications menu on the left. Click on Settings, and you'll see a list of all the notifications. Many spaces will use a scheme, meaning your Jira admin is responsible for maintaining these. So understanding how to read this is important because you will see that when a work item is edited, these particular recipients will get that notification. Jira admins can edit these. However, individuals can also control which notifications they receive. So as a space admin, I want to understand what people will get. But as an individual user, I will also go up to my settings gear and click on notification settings to tailor which notifications I will get. For example, I could turn off all emails. I don't recommend this. However, if they are annoying you and aren't useful, turn them off. You can also change the frequency of when you get them. For example, the default is every 3 minutes. Maybe you say every hour. You can also tailor which specific events will notify you. You can even have a different set of notifications for specific spaces. In this example, my mobile platform space will send me all my notifications, but maybe I don't want to see changes to comments for anything else. It is very useful to show this to your team so they know how they can change it. Some of these can be set by your Jira admin. For example, if some are turned off, you won't be able to turn them on, but in general, each individual should go in and tailor their own settings. So that was our third session. Again, categorizing work with labels, components, and versions, the general basics behind workflows, and then notifications. Please make sure you're following up in that free companion course and drop your questions in the comments down below. In case you missed the live session, there should be a link below and also up top. And thank you for taking time to learn with me. I really am thankful you're here, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next session soon.